بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And I will also start with the dua. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So today, inshallah, we'll have a very important topic, which is the topic of kindness to parents. There's a term also in Arabic, birrul walidain. I believe all of you have heard of it. And we will inshallah talk what this means. We'll start also a little bit about some definitions to get a wider understanding of really what it means, because it's a very comprehensive term. And we also hear frequently, apart from birr al-walidain, we also hear frequently the word ihsan. There's a verse in the Quran as well, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. So let's start by looking at the linguistic meaning and the Islamic understanding, birr al-walidain, al-ihsan, towards them. Being good to them and having birr towards them, basically. So let's have a little look at what this means in terms of the language and in terms of the Islamic definition. So the word birr linguistically, so the verb itself, it has many meanings in Arabic. Those who have maybe been introduced to some Arabic before, salaha, the at-ta'a, obedience, saddaqa, as-sidq, as-salah, at-ta'a, al-khayr, as-sila. Many meanings. For example, obedience, being truthful towards someone. So it's for all types of al-khayr, and all types of good and goodness towards someone, and al-fadl, grace towards someone. And it can be also used as as-sila, keeping ties. We had the Friday khutbah about silat al-rahim, keeping the ties of kinship. So it's also comes under this birr. So these are some of the linguistic meanings about around the word al-birr. And the person who has the attribute of this, they are called in Arabic bar or bar, and the plural is abrar or barara. And this is, subhanallah, also how the angels are called in the Quran, kiramin barara. So the angel that is described with this characteristic of al-birr, here referring to their obedience and referring to the good. They only do good. So they are described with this term barara, because of their obedience to Allah and then the khair that they do. It's a very general word, and it's one of the most comprehensive words that you can see. Even in terms of its usage in the Quran, it's a very comprehensive word that covers all kinds of good. And that's why a scholar named Ar-Raghib al-Asfahani, rahimahullah, he said that al-birr is at-tawassu' fil khair wa at-ta'a. It means to be expansive, to be vast in goodness and obedience, to go a large extent in goodness and in ta'a, in obedience. Another scholar of the past, Al-Munawi, rahimahullah, said birr al-walid, so obedience to the parent, or like birr al-walid in general, birr towards the parent, is tawassu' fil ihsan ilayh, to really go to the utmost extent in the ihsan towards the parent. Wa taharri mahabbih, and to really seek out everything that they love. Wa tawaqqi makarihi, and to keep yourself away from that which they dislike. Wa rifq bih, which is to be soft and gentle with them. Wa didduhu al-uquq, and the opposite of it is al-uquq, which is to go against your parents, basically. So we see how vast this word is, and how vast this concept of birr al-walidain is, this word, the birr. And it really refers to the utmost, or going an utmost extent in good, in ihsan. And also at-ta'a, in obedience, in al-khair, in goodness. And of that is, you seek out everything that the parent loves. Everything that the parent loves, you're looking for it. This is taharri mahabbih. You're trying to seek it, you're trying to achieve it across every spectrum. It's not only specific to some specific deed, but it's very expansive in every single area of their lives and your life. So you're seeking to do what they love, and you're keeping yourself away from all of that which they would dislike. And this is the waqi makarihi, keeping away from everything that they dislike. And this doesn't have to be necessarily something that has to do with the haram, but it's anything that they dislike. And being soft to them, being kind to them in the mannerisms, even in the way, subhanallah, even in the way that you disobey your parent, you have to have this rifq. A Muslim has to have this rifq, this gentleness with the walid, with the parent, even when they have to. Sometimes it is obligatory upon the son or the daughter to disobey if they would, for example, tell you to do something haram. They would tell you to get me some beer from the store or something. You cannot do it, but you will not say like, oh, why don't you know that this is haram? You don't start shouting at your parent. You say it with gentleness that, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. I hope you understand. You have this rifq with them even when you have to disobey your parents, subhanallah. And the opposite of that is al-uquq, to be bad to your parents. And this is one of the types of major, one of the worst types even of major sins. And this is very comprehensive. So this al-bir, so how you speak to them, how you behave, how you spend on them your money, and even, subhanAllah, it covers what is in your heart, how you feel towards them in your heart, and the love that you have for them, for your parents, and the care that you have for them, and the priorities also that you have for them, the way they come first in your heart. Even this, subhanAllah, what you're feeling in your heart towards them, comes under the same bir al-walidain. So this is a very comprehensive concept. As for the word ihsan, wabil walidaini ihsana, it's to go an extra mile in doing good, to go further than their expectations, to go beyond that and exceed the expectations and give them more than they give you. It's one of the definitions. The other definition is doing some action in a good way. In Arabic you say somebody did something well, you say ahsanta, you did, well done. So this is also doing some action in a good way, to perform an action that is complete and good, and to give more than is expected. These are a couple of meanings of the word ihsan. And the ihsan is also giving more than you have to give, and taking less than what you have the right to take. And subhanAllah, there are also examples of this amongst the Sahaba and the early generations of the Ummah, how they would strive for excellence when it comes to their ibadah in general, the worship of Allah in general, and also when it comes to treating the parents. And it's also important to talk about the word walid, the parent, and from amongst the people of knowledge, there are those who say that it isn't just limited to the parent as the mother or the father, but it also includes the ascendants above them, meaning your grandparents and your great-grandparents if they are still alive. Because linguistically, this comes under the title of al-walid. This is also something to keep in mind. Even though the parents should have this special place in our hearts, and they also have a special place in Islam given by Allah, there is also bir al-walidain that has to be done towards grandparents if they are still alive. So let's talk about bir al-walidain in the Quran. So Allah says in the Quran, بَعَدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and the ayah goes on. But we're focusing on the aspect of the parents here. So it starts, worship Allah and associate nothing with Him, and do good to your parents. So subhanallah, you see how first Allah starts with His haqq, with His right, wa'budullah. And this is the right of Allah over all of His servants. Like the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, يا معاذ هل تدري ما حق الله على عباده وما حق العباد على الله قلت الله ورسوله أعلم. So the Prophet ﷺ asked Mu'adh, O Mu'adh, do you know what is the right of Allah upon his servants and what is the right of his servants upon Allah? And I said, meaning Mu'adh said, Allah and his messenger know better. قال فإن حق الله على العباد أن يعبدوه ولا يشركوا به شيئا. Upon this the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Allah's right upon his servants is that they should worship him alone and associate nothing with him. وحق العباد على الله ألا يعذب من لا يشرك به شيئا. And his servant's right upon him is that he should not punish that who does not associate anything with him. So this right of Allah is the greatest of all the huquq, of all the rights. And this is the religion of Allah. And this is, subhanAllah, also the meaning of La ilaha illallah. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship only Allah and do not associate any partners to him. But subhanAllah, why I'm focusing on this, look at how Allah joined between his right and the right of the parents. SubhanAllah, it comes straight after to show you that there is no right, there is no haqq or huquq, no rights on the face of this earth or in the religion of Islam greater than the right of the parents after the right of Allah. SubhanAllah. And this also benefits us that when there is a ta'arud, there is a contradiction between the rights of Allah and the rights of the parent, then the rights of Allah come first. Again, the same example. If they tell you to do something haram, right? Then the haqq of Allah, the right of Allah comes first. But after that, the right of Allah, after the right of Allah, there is no greater right than the right of the parent. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا is what we continue, and this means also to your parents do good. Now here the word walidain, it covers the father and the mother, and it covers the two of them together. And there are also other ayat about the fact that the right of the parents is not only when they are together, but even when they are separate. Because sometimes this happens, the parents get divorced, they live in separate houses, for example. But each one of them still have their right after that. But here it doesn't limit the walidain to walidain al-muslimain. Allah doesn't say in the Quran that you have to have ihsan to your Muslim parents. This is very important to all of us whose parents are not Muslims. So the ayah here is general. In Islam, there is no specific ruling about limiting this to the Muslim parent. So also if a person has non-Muslim parents, whichever religion they are, or maybe they don't have any religion at all, they still have this right over you in Islam, the right of parents. So Allah says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, to your parents do ihsan. So remember what we talked about, these definitions. And one of the meaning is to have excellence in every way that you deal with them, with your parents, in every aspect. In your speech, in your actions, in spending on them, in the affairs of the heart, all of it towards your parents should be ihsan. It should be at the highest standard of what Islam expects from you. And rather the word ihsan, yes, subhanAllah, sometimes it's only translated as doing good or being good, which also holds this meaning in general, but it also indicates going beyond just being good. So Allah commands us in the Quran, for example, also with adl. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. So the adl, which is justice, it's expected from us in all aspects of our lives, and also with our parents, but we have to go with our parents even beyond that, which is the ihsan. So you are commanded to have excellence in every aspect, every way that you deal with your parents. So the things that you do for them, the things that you don't do even, something they ask you not to do maybe, right? Because al-bir covers also at-ta'ah, obedience to them. The way that you spend, the way that your heart is towards them, your gentleness towards them, etc. With all of this, you should have excellence. And you should aim to go even beyond what they would expect. And this is why when we talked about the definition that was given earlier, talked about the harri mahabbi, that a person actually actively seeks out things that make their parents happy. وَتَوَقِّ مَكَارِهِ, and instinctively knows the things that make their parents sad. It's not the ihsan for the parent to have to ask the child to do something. This is al-adl, this is justice. When your mom, your dad, they ask you to do something, it's al-adl that you respond and you do it when it's in your capability. This is fairness. The parent says, hey, can you bring me a glass of water? And the child brings a glass of water. This is adl, this is justice. But this is not al-ihsan. This is not what Allah has commanded with this ayah, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Ihsan is that you bring your parent a glass of water before they even ask for it. You instinctively, you expect that, okay, like you believe that they want a glass of water. You try to, this is the harri mahabi. You actively seek out what is it that they want, what would make them happier, right? So this is the ihsan. You actively searching out the things that they like, and you know what they need before they have to ask for it. Of course, with some of the things you cannot know, but with many of the things you can expect what they would like. Because if they have to ask for it, for everything, and you only do something good for them only if they ask you, then this is taqsir. This is becoming like falling shortcoming in the right of the parent. It is deficiency as it relates to the right of the parent, and it doesn't come under the full meaning of al-ihsan. The full meaning of the word ihsan would indicate that you give your parents what they want and what they need, and you avoid what they dislike even before they say the words, before they themselves express it. That's what ihsan is. So ihsan is to excel, and it's to be also obedient. When they tell you to do something, you do it, and so on. But it's more than that. It's also about being ahead of what they ask you to do, and actively looking at what, for example, what would make my mom happy today? What would make my dad happy today? What would my mom dislike from the things that I am doing? Even if they don't say it. Because some of the parents, subhanAllah, they might be too shy to say that to their children. And something they don't like. So they maybe keep it quiet. Maybe they keep it inside of themselves. And subhanAllah, maybe you have also experienced it sometimes, that when we sometimes, maybe it's a few days go by and we don't call our parents, and maybe you say something like, you can always call me as well, like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, but they're still like afraid that maybe they disturb you, maybe you're working, maybe, sometimes they might say that I don't want to disturb you, I don't know, maybe you're busy. But subhanAllah, of course they would love to talk to you, but at the same time they might be too shy. So this is also something, a reminder to myself and to everyone here, to constantly, like regularly keep this connection, even by calling your parents. And this is something, it's a shame when it happens sometimes only once a month. This is a huge taqsir, a huge shortcoming in the right of the parents. We should strive to call our parents every day. This should at least be something we strive for, even if we cannot achieve it. But at least a couple of times a week, 3 times a week, we have to keep that connection. If it's just once a week, once a month, then this is not from the right behavior of a Muslim. And again, don't expect them. Don't say that, oh, like you can just call me as well. You have my number as well. You can call me. But the parent can be shy sometimes. They might not call you because they might think that maybe you're busy with something. So a person actively thinks that what am I doing that I know that maybe I feel that my parents would like it, and even about things that a person would leave for the sake of their parents, because you leave something because you know that leaving this makes your parent happy. And the word ihsan, again here in this ayah, is very general. It's not a particular kind of ihsan that is specified. It's general for every kind of action, and that's also why Allah didn't specify it. He didn't say a certain kind of ihsan. For example, have ihsan only in the way you speak to them. Rather, it is from one of the most generic terms of like what is mentioned, for example, even in the Quran, one of the more generic terms, and it covers a lot. Like the word al-bir, al-ihsan. These are the words and phrases that are completely general and cover, you can say, even literally everything in every single thing in that spectrum, like of what comes underneath it. So this ihsan, let's remember, covers every aspect. So let's move on to another really important ayah regarding the parents. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, which is chapter 17, verse 23, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُل لَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. وقضى ربك. So we start explaining inshallah, like verse by verse, not even verse by verse, but we take small parts of it. وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا. For your Lord has decreed, meaning commanded, established, that you worship none but Him, and do ihsan to your parents. Again here Allah starts with the greatest haqq, with the greatest right, which is not to worship anyone but Him. And then follows with this a command to people to do ihsan towards the parents. إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا. If one or both of them reach old age, also if they're in your care. But it's okay. You can understand it generally also. If one of them or both of them reach old age. Here the question is, why did Allah mention old age? Does it mean that we only have to care for our parents when they're old? Because even with the ayah that precedes, there is no limit to the ihsan. It's not ihsan to a particular age. So it covers all ages. It's general. But why I highlight old age here? It's not highlighted in a restrictive sense, that only be good to your parents when they are old. However, it's for the increased need when they are old. Perhaps when the parents are younger, they don't have that much need for their children to help them. In fact, the balance is actually tilted in the other way. It's the children that need the help of the parents to take care of them, etc. And the parents they put a lot of effort into taking care of the children, and it's the children who need them. But when the parents reach old age, the expectation is that, or usually this is the case, that the parents will need the children. So it's for increased emphasis, but not to restrict the ihsan to just old age. So the ruling applies to when they're young and when they're old. It applies to when they're young, but when they're old, it has greater emphasis when they're older, because of the expectation that they will have a greater need as they get older. And again, many parents, subhanAllah, they might be shy to express that need. They may be, even some, subhanAllah, they might not express it, but at the same time, maybe they don't even sleep at night well. Perhaps some of them cry and they feel within themselves great distress because their children don't do for them that which they would wish for their children to do. But they can't find the words to express it, or they feel like they might hurt their children by saying it. And subhanAllah, this looking after your children, looking after your parents when they're older, it's not that Islam restricts looking you after your parents to when they're old, but it's to give even greater emphasis when they're older, to the general emphasis that is given throughout the whole life of the parent. And from this is subhanAllah, the sad situation, which is often tradition amongst the people, unfortunately, to sort of cast away their parents when they are old. That once their parents reach a certain age, they put them into a care home or into a place where they are far away from the children. So, the child doesn't have to be burdened by their parents' needs at old age. Maybe they just visit once a month, once every 2 months, maybe even half a year. SubhanAllah. And I ask Allah to help us all of us to do much, much better with our parents than this. Ameen. And let me ask you a question. Think about, what if this would happen in reverse? What would happen if during the tarbiyah, during the upbringing of the child, your parents said that, I don't want to be troubled by my child when they're so young. They're crying all the time, they need food and all of this. So I'm just going to put them in an orphanage or something, or a boarding school until they reach, for example, 10 years old. What would you feel as the child? How would you feel if your parents said, I'm just going to put them in an orphanage or something, I'm going to take them away out of my sight until they reach the age of 10? Surely it would hurt you as a child if your parents, if you know that your parents just want to be rid of you. And then subhanAllah, how is it that when the parent reaches old age, people don't feel shy to just say, get my parents away from me, put them in the care home. We just, give them to someone else's care, subhanAllah. And this, subhanAllah, also is, sometimes I find myself thinking about over and over again, subhanAllah, how we have also here in this society, we have a lot of old people living by themselves. And you have these grandmothers, grandfathers, especially when their life partner, when their spouse has passed away and they're all alone. And especially sometimes I find myself thinking about those who live in the countryside. They live far away from the city. SubhanAllah, they live all by themselves. They have to take care of all of their needs. Maybe they have to walk even a lot in their old age to get to the store. They have to maybe go to the doctor again. They have to walk a lot to get to the bus stop. And then, subhanAllah, the only joy they have is when their children visit them, let's say once every 2 months, which is very common here, or once a month maybe, or once in 3 months. They visit and they stay there. Their mother, their father, maybe she's 80 years old, has prepared for them what she could, some meal, for example. And the children, they stay there for 2 hours, something, and then they say, oh, we have to go. Our child needs us. We have to adjust our trip to the nap time of the child, so not to disturb the child. We only have 2 hours for you. I'm sorry. We come back again when we can, when we have some time. And subhanAllah, think about it. They maybe once in 2 months, once in 3 months. It's very common. It happens a lot. And they have only one weekend maybe, or one couple of hours, a few hours from the weekend every 2 months to spend on their parents. And this, subhanAllah, it's really sad when you think about it. And then they go like on a vacation for a couple of weeks somewhere outside the country, for example. It's something to reflect upon. And subhanAllah, think about that moment. Imagine that moment, that old 80-year-old mother, when those 2 hours are finished and her children are leaving that house in the countryside, maybe in the forest, and leave them all alone. SubhanAllah, that moment, like when they leave, SubhanAllah, imagine how sad, how heavy that is for that mother who put so much effort into bringing them up. and this is what she gets in return. So ask Allah to help us all do much, much better with that. And there are alternatives to that. There are alternatives to care homes. It doesn't mean you have to bring them to your apartment. Maybe if it's possible, you have a way to maybe even have a small apartment for your mother or father close to you, so you can visit them on a regular basis. Maybe if they really need some care by a professional, you can hire that. If you can, best of course if they can live in your house with you, like in their old age. You can have a separate sort of area if possible, separate maybe part of the house or part of the apartment, so that it doesn't also affect negatively your own family life. But we cannot just neglect our parents when they become old. And subhanAllah, this is one of the greatest rights, birr al-walidain. It's one of the greatest rights that Allah has put upon people, and we don't want to commit a major sin by neglecting our parents just because it's more convenient for us to not take proper care of them. So Allah goes on to say, كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. So mentioning this, that how they brought me up as when I was young. So it's to remind also how, yes, we might have to go through some difficulty in taking care of them when they're old, or visiting them often when they're old, finding time for them. We might find some difficulty in that. But subhanAllah, they found also a lot of difficulty when we were children. And it's only logical that we return that favor. Not even if you leave that ayah aside, it just is right to return that. Then Allah said, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Never say to them even uff. So uff is the smallest word in Arabic language to express displeasure. For example, it's the same. I believe I mentioned this when we were talking about children as well in the previous lecture. So it's the same as if you say like, you make that sound with your mouth, or you say tss, like to your parent, or like it's the smallest thing. And Allah mentioned the smallest thing in order to include all of the things that are bigger than that. And just one thing I want to also mention as a reminder to all of us, that it's completely off the topic, but we all need to have patience when we have children in the masjid. We have to have patience, and we don't need to tell any parent off if their children don't maybe behave as if we wish them to behave. Because subhanAllah, the true sad moment would be when we don't hear the sound of children in the masjid. So it's just a generic reminder off the topic, just at the moment to remind ourselves to have that patience. And of course there's tarbiyah, we try to teach them, but sometimes it's out of our hands, right? And we try our best, but subhanAllah, building a habit for the children to come to the masjid, it's much more important than maybe some of them like making some noise and maybe disturbing someone in the masjid. We have to have patience with that. Just an off-topic reminder. So this uff that Allah mentions, it's to include all of the things also that are bigger than that. Uff is the smallest way to express displeasure. So Allah didn't say, don't swear at them. Allah didn't say, do not abuse your parents, because all of those things are far more severe than this one phrase, uff, right? It's not even a phrase, it's like a small word. So if uff is one of these, it's the smallest one of them, then by prohibiting the word uff, you prohibit every single thing that is more severe. So that includes the negative expressions, rolling your eyes at your parents. They say something like you're like, what are you saying? Like, we should not do that. Or by even expressing displeasure by sighing, you sigh like, Your parents say something and you're like this also is an expression of displeasure. And we have to have gentleness and avoid this in all aspects. SubhanAllah. Any negative expression. So if uff is prohibited and uff is one of the smallest of the words that can express displeasure, then or that can be considered rude. Also, you say uff, it's rude. Then also everything else that is more severe than that is prohibited. Then Allah says, وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. So, وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا, we can translate it that don't yell at them, but the more precise meaning is to rebuke someone or to push away someone with the way you speak to them. So it can be that the parent asks something and the child speaks to them. And when I say the word child here, I don't mean like a small child. I'm talking about all of us here who still have our parents alive, right? That when our parents ask something, then we should وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. We should not rebuke them. We should not speak to them in a manner that pushes them away. And we all know we don't have to have like these really precise definitions. We all know what this means when you say something and you feel that it pushes them away. They say something and you snap at them or you reply in a negative way. We all know what this means. So this is really important how we respond in our speech. And this ayah includes also when disobeying them in the haram. As I mentioned before, we should also not say like if maybe there's something that they would wish us to do, especially the non-Muslim parents, they might ask us to do something that we cannot do as Muslims. And even then our reaction shouldn't be, what do you mean? I can't do it. You know I can't do it. You have to have that, the manner of speech, you have to have the gentleness and not to use any sort of speech that sort of rebukes them, pushes them away. So you might think then, what is the solution? You might think that, okay, I'll just be silent. I will not say anything, right? To avoid saying bad things or rebuking or something that pushes them away. I'll just be quiet. Khalas, problem solved, right? But this is not the case because subhanallah, Allah says, وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Rather address them respectfully. So say to them the most gracious, the most noble words. And yes, silent is not acceptable. Rather, you have to actively make an effort to say the kindest, the most considerate, and the most noble words to your parents. وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِ صَغِيرًا. And be humble with them, or lower to them the wing of humility, if translated more directly, out of mercy. And pray, my Lord, be merciful to them as they raised me when I was young. So you don't show any sign of pride or authority in front of them. Rather, you show that humility and you respect their position that Allah has given them, and you show mercy to them. So you do it not out of fear to your parents, but you do it out of mercy. You do it out of mercy, you be humble with them, out of mercy to them. So this is what Allah made easy for me to deliver today. And I ask Allah to help us all in truly giving the parents the haqq, their huquq that they really deserve. It's a constant effort. It requires also conscious effort from us. And sometimes these things are not very common that Islam teaches us. We maybe see so much of the opposite around us that we say that, I just go as everyone else, behaves, right? But Islam has given really the parents great rights, and we have to try our best as Muslims to deliver those rights to them. And I ask Allah to make it easy to all of us and to guide us and to guide our parents. Ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.